Vince was always pretty predictable when it came to putting the title on someone, or handing out awards. Though it always seemed that whenever business was down, or things weren't working out, Vince would always come back to me. They'd have me handle the stormy seas sort of thing, then once the sun began to come out they'd give the title to another one of Vince's new brightest idea. Which I guess didn't really bother me that much, you know. My dad Stu used to say there's always a bigger draw in the other territory, which is just sort of an old school shooter's way of saying that wrestling organizations rarely value what talent they have. And I thought it really applied to Vince. Though I guess I took exception to when they kept trying to put the belt on Shawn time and time again, often with pretty bad results. Even when we'd go to Europe or anywhere outside the US, I was easily the most over guy in the company. It was like the Beatles, it was insane. Women would be throwing themselves at me, every country we went to, you know. So I know I'd carry the company, and sort of really stabilize things. Then they'd turn around to give Shawn the title. Of course Shawn would come out and have a few decent matches, but then attendance or the TV ratings would drop, and then Shawn would need to fix his knee, or smile, whatever, you know. He couldn't be relied to put on a real layered, thought-out consistent match or program. He'd maybe have a pretty good ladder match, and then wouldn't have a good match for months if he didn't just disappear. Of course then the Slammies would roll around and he'd be handed award after award. I remember one Slammy award ceremony. I had been champion for a while, putting on pretty good matches with just about everyone you could think of. I remember Vince said, "You've got an award or two coming your way, pal," which I mean, real or not, it's nice to be recognized a bit, you know. I was never a big fan of award ceremonies. Canadians generally don't like a lot of pomp and circumstance. We're pretty humble people, and often a solid handshake followed by a Molson is enough. Though for me my biggest feeling of pride was that all of the boys wanted to work with me, because they knew I was safe. So sure enough the award ceremony begins, and I'm seated by Duke the Dumpterdries. Which was a pretty bad sign. I noticed Shawn's table was closest to the washroom, and Shawn made plenty use of it during the show. Sure enough they begin to hand out the awards, and Shawn wins one after another. By about his third award it was clear Shawn was over it. He was like that spoiled rich kid at the birthday with all the toys, who doesn't care by about the 14th present, you know. Sure enough I got an award for the sharpshooter and best music video. Which really confused my dad. I mean, I was a pretty good actor, and was getting some work on Lonesome Dove, but the wrestling awards were what mattered to my dad. Finally, after the show was over, Shawn stumbled out of the washroom, being carried by the clique to the nearest cab, while Hunter was picking up the Slammies Shawn forgot. I remember Hunter glancing around the room quickly, then posing with them like some actress in a mirror with an Oscar, then looking around the room again to see if anyone saw him. I began to help my parents up into the lobby of the hotel, and eventually up to my room. I could tell my dad was pretty disappointed. My mom pointed out I won 3, but my dad just kept shaking his head. As he got into the elevator and waited for the door to close, he said, "Well, son, you did as best as you could. Don't worry about that Shawn fella. I think you'll be champion soon enough." I pointed out to my dad that I was already champion a few times. He looked at me a bit confused, then reassured me and said, "If I call Bruce in Calgary from here, is it considered long distance?"